Welcome to Quickshots.
Hey, welcome to Quickshots. We got a big one this week because we've had one of our loyal listeners, Glenn Pierce, write into us, cuz, so we will give him a special mention in a moment. And then we've also got 3 questions from mostly clients and then also listeners.
Yeah, agree. So shout out to Glenn. We did an episode, a couple of weeks ago now, talking about the bots from Fiverr. That was our title. That was the title. It was a dubious title. I dare say that was you and Mitch. That one.
That's Mitch buying all the bots to listen to his episodes. That's why there's considerably higher listen rate. Yes.
And you're talking about tax. Put a shout out, a call out to listeners that if they've got any tax tips or hacks to send them through. And Glenn has answered the call. He's an accountant. Got a number of investment properties himself. Tick, tick.
Yes.
Always a trait you want in your accountant. Lives in Coffs Harbour. Hit him up if you're around there or you're looking for an accountant. Olive Tree Grove accountants. And he had some great tips. And it was mainly, he was sort of saying, look, you've sort of missed out on the self-employed and some of the high-income earners. They might have a different approach to someone who's getting PAYG. And yes, great point. Talked about the fact that in your super fund, you can minimise your tax because you only pay 15% rather than whatever your tax rate is, and also can be tax-free if you sell them and have a capital gain in retirement there. And then he talked about using trusts as a way to minimise and move your money around to different beneficiaries or family members. And then finally, he talked about some vendor financing, which really tricky one because you really got to know what you're doing. Vendor financing is basically where you buy off a house off someone and they agree to loan you part of the purchase price. So they're acting as your bank. Obviously, it can work very well because it's a win-win. You pay probably get better terms than what you'd be able to get from a normal lender. And for them, they'll probably get more return than they get in the bank. The issue, however, is you really got to be careful because you need about 30% in terms of a deposit and to give them 30% of the price to get the title in your name. Having said that, though, great ideas from Glenn. And I think what it points out is there are so many people with qualifications much more knowledgeable than Alex and I and anyone else who's filled in on this pod when it comes to reducing your tax. So, look, we'll give you headline numbers based on our experience, but absolutely it is worth speaking to a professional who does this day in, day out.
Professional like Glenn, cuz. But I will say the investment tool is still property. It's just how and sort of how you structure the purchase of it so that you can be extremely tax effective. And Glenn, thank you, because some of those are highly sophisticated ways for sophisticated investors as well of you to, I guess, sort of minimise your tax and maximise your strategy. Thank you, Glenn. You're a legend.
TJ, another loyal listener. TJ's been on this segment a few times. TJ's asked us. TJ's asked this week, is it worth selling an investment property to clear some of your principal place of residence debt, i.e. the house that you live in?
My answer is no, but I can't deny that it completely depends on your situation, right? But if you're smart, you'll already have been set up in a way where any tax you get back on that investment property, you are putting it straight into paying down your principal place of residence already. And many times that investment property can be the tool to help you pay down your own home. So if you sell it, you might be taking away that tool, but I do understand selling it, you probably using your capital gains there to pay it down. But I don't know, Kaz, do you have a different answer to that? It is circumstantial, but I would say 6 times out of 10, you're probably cutting your legs off there.
I think you and I sing from the same hymn sheet. We always avoid selling at all costs because the cost of getting in and out of property is so high. So, look, without knowing the exact details, TJ, I doubt it's going to be worth it. The only exception normally is if a property costs you a lot of money to hold. That would be the only sort of exception there.
If it's really putting a dampener on your cash flow, but make sure, your current setup is as cash flow effective as possible. Are you paying interest only on that investment property, etc.? All right, this one comes from, did you just ask me? I don't know. Yeah, this one comes from Jarrell. Stuff it. Here we go. No, we'll do Joe. We'll do Joe. You've combined these two things.
Get on with it.
I can't read. This one's from Joe. With the new first home buyers scheme, what does the percentage from the government represent? And I assume that Joe here is talking about the new Labor federal government first home buyer scheme, cuz.
Yeah, so the new Labor government scheme doesn't actually come into place till July. It hasn't been legislated yet, but that's July 2023 for anyone who listens to our podcasts historically first. And what it involves is the federal government will put in 40% of your property price, and it's not actually a loan, it's a shared equity scheme. So they will put in 40% of the cost of that house. In exchange for that, you don't pay them any interest, so it significantly reduces the repayments on the home, but you do have to pay them 40% of the property's increase in value over time. So significant benefit in that your repayments will be nearly half what they would be if you bought the property on your own. However, you only get about 60%, so just over half of all the increase in value. I think it is a fantastic scheme. We've seen it work really well in the UK and other parts. The preference always would be to buy in 100% on your own if you're able to. But as they say, half of one is better than all of none. So if you do qualify for that one, Joe, I would absolutely be looking into that. I'll go Jarrell on this one. I knew that you would give me the longer question because it's a lot more to try and process as it's being asked.
I believe in you.
I'll give you the shortest question on the sheet today. Jarrell wants to know, I believe must have bought a house and it's now been turned into a investment property. That's the context. Do you need to inform the bank if your principal place of residence becomes an investment property?
Yeah, I'm getting asked this question a lot at the moment. I think it's people pretty much what we talked about in our episode this week. They're living in a house with maybe 3 or 4 free bedrooms, looking at the rental crisis and going, frig, well, maybe I'll just move in with my mate, rent out for a mozza, and happy days. I'll cover the cost of living increasing.
Reinvesting.
Yeah, reinvesting, exactly. So reversing your reinvest. I think I said something earlier in the year, buy now, live in later. Any hoodles. The answer to this question is, do you have to let the bank know? It's a grey area. You don't have to, but let's remember here that you may be getting a better interest rate because the bank believes it's your owner-occupied property, so your principal place of residence, but you will be paying principal. So you're paying down your debt plus your interest repayments. So as an investment property, when you move out, yes, you're paying less interest, but your cash flow may not be as effective as it could possibly be paying principal and interest. So, whilst it's a bit of a grey area, I do know a lot of people that have sort of moved out and not let the bank know. They're eventually going to find out, and you just got to make sure that your cash flow is working for you and, not get too many dollar signs in your eyes, cuz, because you're renting it out for a mozza and you think you're only paying X in interest when you're paying a bucket load of principal.
Oh, you're skating on thin ice there, Fitzgerald. In any event, I like it. Do you have to? No, you probably should though. Anyway, so hopefully that helps TJ, Jarrell, Joe, and thank you, Glenn, for giving us such awesome feedback. We'd love to hear from all you. If you do have a question, hit us up. Our email's in the show notes. Hey, Kaz, good luck getting over the jet lag.
Thank you. And I should say, if you want us to connect you to Glenn.
Oh, yeah, hit us up. We've got his details.
Not all accountants need to be seen in person these days. So despite being in Coffs Harbour, Glenn, we might be able to just pass on your email to him, but we won't give it out over the pod. We'll respect Glenn and maybe get his permission to hand it out first. So, all right. Candy bars.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Toodaloo. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, okay, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.